Hello, welcome to my bedroom. These are my childhood stuffed animals. Bear, George. Used to have a big elephant that I called Elle. So, I was a very creative little boy. Got a teddy bear, named him Bear. Got a Curious George, named him George. And my brother gave me that big elephant, and he called it Elle. So I kept the name going. My Mimo was nice enough to hold on to these when I was told that I was too old for them when I was about 11 years old. And I'm glad she did. She made a little sweater for George and Bear. They got rid of Elle because he was pretty big. But I still love these guys. They remind me of a time in my life that I was very happy. So yeah, I had to get rid of them when I was 11. Actually, it was pretty shitty because I was 11 and we moved from where I grew up. I grew up in Laurel, Maryland, on the eastern side of Howard County in Maryland, right near Prince George's County or PG County, right on the border there, close to Main Street, Laurel, and went to Hammond Elementary. And we lived in two different townhouses there. And we got an opportunity to move to Western Howard County, which was much more country, a lot of more farmland. We lived in a very old house, or I moved to this very old house. It was built in the late 1800s. So it had a lot of mold problems and lots of issues. But it was on a lot of land, which was really nice. I forgot it was a lot. I mean, a couple dozen acres of land in the woods, and very interesting place to grow up or spend my, beginning teenage years at. Anyway, we moved there when I was 11, and that was a big deal because I had all these friends at my old place. I lived in like a cul-de-sac in a townhouse community and had a lot of friends and go ride bikes and, lots of things to do, a park and a bunch of buds and, think Stranger Things or The Goonies, We used to go play N64 over people's houses, GoldenEye, Mario Kart. Anyways, just a good community of friends and families that I knew. It was a great place to grow up as a little kid. And then I made a huge shift to the other side of the county to where I had no neighbors, just woods. And not only that, I had to, make all new friends. So I had to get rid of my stuffed animals. I had to move to a completely different area where I was isolated from a community. And to make matters worse, they say that tragedies come in 3 in your life. So I had to lose my stuffed animals. I had to make a big move, which I lost my friends. Just a whole new setting. And then the third thing that happened was my mom died. She was only 33 years old, how old I am now. And she had been battling with some weird nerve pain in her legs. She was a very healthy adult. But for, a few years, maybe 3 years before her passing, she started having this really bad nerve pain in her legs. So bad that it came to a point that she couldn't walk. She was in a wheelchair, like 31, 32 years old. And I didn't know at the time, but I found out more recently when I talked to my dad about it, that she had some kind of, I don't know, growth in her uterus that was putting like pressure on this, I don't know, thing that was causing the nerve pain down her legs. Anyway, she had gone through a few procedures to try and make this pain better. And this last one was a hysterectomy, to take her whole uterus out to alleviate the, I think it was a blood flow issue or something to her legs that was causing all this pain. Don't quote me on that, I don't remember. Anyway, I'm telling you all this because I want to talk about one of my first major run-ins with the healthcare industry and how it affected my life. Because my mom went to have the surgery. We had just moved into our new house. We'd only been there a couple months, from my recollection. And my mom was getting ready to have surgery the next day. And she was helping me with school projects. And the school project was, ironically enough, about our family heritage. And I had to make this box where I would put different things in to, be like, this is, like I brought a Stein, a beer Stein, for my German history. And sorry, something weird happened there. But I brought a beer Stein for my German history or ancestry, and I brought a shillelagh, like an Irish cane, for my Irish heritage, and some other things. I have a lot of white in me. French and English, and I don't remember all the things I had in there, but anyways, I had to decorate the box with the different sides, different ancestries. Anyways, my mom was helping me with that the day before her surgery, and I have a very clear memory of asking her about the surgery as 11 years old. I said, Mom, what are you doing tomorrow? And she kind of like told me, half of what it was, because, I wouldn't understand. And she was like, yeah, and there's like a, 80% chance that this will work, or something along those lines. And in my little 11-year-old brain, I was like, I retorted back to her, so you're telling me there's a 20% chance you'll die? And she's like, oh, no, David. No, nothing. No, I meant 80% chance that it'll fix this pain issue that I've been having. And I was like, whew. And she says, well, there's always a chance with any surgery that I could die, but it's, very, very minimum. You don't need to worry about that. So I didn't. And that was enough for me to go to my, I want to say first or second Pee Wee Pop Warner football game, instead of going to the hospital, for my mom's surgery. And I was supposed to go home with some friends afterwards. And so when the game was over and we'd won, I was very surprised to see my Meemaw and Peepaw, my mom's parents, standing there on the sideline. And so I immediately asked them, like, is everything okay? And they kind of brushed the question off and like, we need to go to the hospital. And got in the car, and they told me that my mom had stopped breathing. And that she was brain dead. And, I freaking bawled my eyes out the whole way there. And I got there and they had her on life support. All these tubes and things making her breathe and keeping her alive, even though her brain was dead. She had stopped breathing for several minutes, way longer than the 3 minutes that causes you to go brain dead. And I think back on this, and I think like the questioning before, the day before, me and my mom's conversations, like we almost called it, almost was prophetic in a very sad way. And anyway, what had happened is the surgery was successful, apparently, and she was young and healthy, so she didn't need to be on a heart monitor, or didn't need to be really looked after very well, because she was young and healthy. It was fine. But she was given a drug called Demerol. It's a very powerful narcotic, opioid. She was given that drug, and she was given more of it than she should have been given, like a normal dose. And on top of that, she had a allergic reaction to the Demerol, a while before that. I don't remember how long, a few months, a couple years before that. And I remember that episode very vividly too. I remember being in the basement watching TV with my brother in the old townhouse, my dad yelling for us to come upstairs. And us getting up there, and he's like, I have to take your mom to the emergency room. Jeff, you watch David, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not even listening to my dad, because my mom's like having a seizure. She's like shaking uncontrollably. And her legs are in pain and stuff too, so she could barely walk. She's seizing. And it was just awful to watch. It's a terrible memory to have. Anyways, that was from the Demerol, from my recollection. And so that was noted. Doctors always ask you, do you have any allergies we should know of? Well, my mom definitely was allergic to Demerol. And it was in her chart. And a nurse that was taking care of her that night either missed it or didn't read it and gave her that anyways. And then gave her more than she was supposed to. So instead of my mom seizing, she just stopped breathing. And I don't even know how they figured out that she'd stopped breathing. I know my grandmother, my Meemaw, was there next to her all night. But again, she didn't have any kind of heart monitor or anything, so it's kind of an unknown, I think. And I was a part of a lot of the legal proceedings afterwards, but I was so young, I don't remember any of the details. But things that stand out to me to this day from that experience, obviously, is all the pain of losing my mother, who I had a very close relationship with. Me and her were two peas in the pod. Just best friends. So sweet, and couldn't ask for a better mother. And what I remember, though, about the healthcare industry is drugs and life support. and them wanting to keep my mom alive even though she was dead, and my dad being big enough man and knowing that that wasn't Debbie, that wasn't my mom anymore, and having them let her go. And we had some family friends come to the hospital, and visit and say goodbyes, and family. And it's really sad to walk into the hospital room with all these tubes sticking out of somebody who's brain dead, and all these machines going off and beeping. And I remember my godfather, my uncle, coming in and just like freaking out about the machines, hearing the beeps and noises and being like, what is that? What's going on? And like just so distraught. And it broke me up to see him go through that. And we had some good family friends, the Cats, K-A-T-Z, come, say their goodbyes. They're really good friends with Mom, and they also were nice enough to, while we're sitting in the lobby, tell some old anecdotes about my mom that I either remembered or didn't know about, and they're all pretty funny or cute. And it helped, lift my spirits in the moment, and I'm forever grateful for that. But all in all, it was a very sad day, and it made me never want to go to a hospital. So anyways, me, my dad, my brother were driving back to our new house. And I remember saying to my dad, and I don't know why, it was like silent the whole time. We're getting real close to the house, and I just remember clearly being like, Dad, do you ever think you'll remarry? Why the fuck would I ask him that after his wife just died? I don't even remember his answer, but it was crazy. So anyways, we get back to the house, and I think just coming to the new house and realizing that Mom wasn't there, I think we all got pretty sad, cried for a little bit. We were staring out this big window at our new house towards the woods. And this hummingbird comes up right outside the window. It just hovers there, staring at all three of us for a long time. I mean, it felt like forever, but it was maybe 30 seconds or a minute. It's crazy. Just staring right at us. And it flew off. And apparently, something similar happened to a few other people. My mom was an identical twin, and apparently her twin, my Aunt Dorothy, had a similar experience, and I think her other sister, or maybe my grandparents, I don't remember who else this all happened to, I just remember what happened to us, but it was very wild. miss my mom every day. My dad was never the same after that. I guess none of us were. And so now I have to show up to a new school that year and try and make new friends. And act like everything was okay. And the crazy part to me always during all this was if I would have been at my old school, everyone would have known because they like knew me and my family. And so I wouldn't have had to tell everybody. But I'm showing up to a new school. And so it's like every time I meet somebody, I don't, it's not the first thing you want to tell somebody. But, as you get to know somebody and they come over, they're like, oh, where's your mom? Oh, well, she's dead. Just like every time. So it just made it harder. Made it harder to build a close group of friends like I had before. Because I didn't want to ever get to that point with my new friends. I didn't want to have to explain to them how my mom died. So I think I kept people at a distance and made several groups of acquaintances. Anytime I got real close with some friends, I would just move on to another group. And I feel like I kept repeating that pattern for the rest of school. I feel like almost every year I had some new group of friends, even though I pretty much stayed, the same people. I did change middle schools once because they opened a new middle school, but still, similar people from my previous middle school, and then a new high school. We made it to the Pop Warner State Championship that year. We were great. We were a really good football team. And I really put my soul into it. And we went against this team that was just ridiculous. I mean, we all conspired that they had kids that were way older. We're in the 9-11 group, 9-year-olds to 11-year-old group. And we swore some of those kids were 13, 14. Or at least they looked like it. They were way bigger than us. And we got stomped. We got blown out. And I never cried so hard for a sporting event, but I think I was just holding on to my mom's death that whole time. And the winning helped keep me elevated. And then when that happened, I just broke down. There's been several times like that in my life where I can be up here and something can trigger me, and I just, all that pain and sadness just comes flooding out. But it feels good. Every time that happens, I feel better afterwards. I feel like I let some of that built up sadness out. And so I used to be ashamed of it for whatever reason. But I'm not anymore. When it comes out, I'm happy. Like, good. I needed to do that. And I don't know why there's ever been this stigma against boys or men or anybody crying when they feel like they need to. People choke back tears. No, not me. I let it out. It needs to come out. I think when you hold it back, hold it inside, it's my belief that that shit causes illnesses, cancer, weakens your immune system. It's cathartic to yell when you're angry or to cry when you're sad. People who stifle that have issues. Go outside. Where it's sunny. Get a better view to the background. What are you doing, Bella? Hey, give me a frisbee. Bring here. Bring here. Little bitch. Fine. Downtown San Francisco. I don't know if I can. Oh well. Anyway. Yeah, it was wild. I didn't mention before that that house we moved into, we were renting it from some friends of my dad. My dad, as I mentioned before, used to work on a watershed as a patrol officer, and he made friends with this older couple that had a nice house that we ended up moving into. The husband had died later in life, and the wife, and they had some kids together, but the widow lived in that house that we lived in for a while. My dad used to go over and do landscaping for their property, so cutting the grass, minor stuff. I'm sure he did it at a very generous rate. So anyways, after the mother passed, nobody was living at the house. Will left the property to, I think it was one of the daughters, maybe all of them, all of the kids, I don't know. But anyways, the one, her husband was in the Air Force, and so they didn't have they weren't assigned to that area, so they didn't want to sell it right away. Besides, it probably would have been hard to sell because it was old. They needed to renovate it. So instead, they offered my dad and us. Well, my mom was still alive at the time. Me and my brother to live there. My dad, had to take care of the property, and we paid very minimal rent. $500 a month, I think. Shoot, we were paying, I want to say, like $1,000 or $1,100 a month for the townhouse that we were living in on the other side of the county, which was way less expensive of an area, with no land, not even a quarter of an acre for our townhouse. And all of a sudden we got a couple dozen plus acres in this bigger house with a pool, the swimming pool, and we paid half as much. So my parents and eventually just my dad decided to keep the townhouse, keep making the mortgage payments, and rent it out because he could still own that house and pay cheap rent on the new, nicer place. So yeah, very fortunate, very lucky that worked out like it did. But again, it was weird to live in this new place after my mom just died and have no community around. I have a very depressed, distant father, and a brother who's just mad, angry all the time. Trying to pick fights with me or my dad about anything. Hated the world. He hated himself. It wasn't the best environment, especially the isolation. But we got a puppy not long after that, a few months after my mom passed, Yellow Lab. The property we lived on, for some reason, was called Delwood. I don't know why. But my dad named the dog Jeff and David's Delwood's Princess. So fancy. But we just called her Del, or Deli. And she was great. A great dog. Very smart. Loved to chase the frisbee or a ball, go swimming. And because I didn't have any neighbors or really any friends for a while, especially ones that were local that I could walk to their house or whatever, I would often take bike rides or walks/hikes through the woods with my dog. And it was very therapeutic for me, and still is with my new dog, Portobello. So yeah, I would spend a lot of time in the woods, just getting into shit, jumping off cliffs, fucking up my knees, running hills, going into the creek, trying to catch crawdads, running into snakes, all sorts of fun stuff. I even went hunting with my dad behind the woods once. I'd shoot guns. My dad had a few guns. Do some target practice behind the house. Hit golf balls. Go swimming. We had a cabana, a little shed right next to the pool. And it was like dilapidating. The roof was all mildewed. Had bats in it and carpenter bees that were just fucking up the structure. But at some point, I think maybe my brother told me that there's an easy way to get on top of that roof, and then you could use it as a really tall diving board. So I used to jump off of it. I remember once my brother and his friends, one of them had recently got shot in the leg and the knee by some dude because they were like gonna fight, and he got shot. Anyways, he was just like on one good leg, and he was jumping off with just one leg into the pool, making it, and then he felt ballsy and with the one leg did a backflip off of it, just barely made it in. Cause there was a gap. I mean, here's the cabana roof, and then like here was the edge of the pool, so he had to jump and land in the pool. If he would have been a little short, he would have landed on the concrete and blew out his other leg. So yeah, I used to do that a lot. And yeah, it's a nice place to live. And my dad, didn't make much money. We did all right. I had a nice place to live for cheap. And my dad had a job that he enjoyed for a while, that I described before. And yeah, it was quite the eye-opener recently, almost 3 years ago, when I took my last job for a medical supply company that provided lab equipment to different research labs and research universities in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we worked for, DNA research places and universities, but also pharmaceutical companies. And it kind of brought it all back full circle to me. Going to these pharmaceutical companies and talking to the people working there about the drugs they were developing or producing, and what they were, and what they did. And I got a really unique perspective on that. And then it came back even more full circle when back in November of last year, I was trying to break into my old apartment here in San Francisco for the third time. The other 2 times were successful. We locked ourselves out. We had a door that you could hit the button on the inside. You wouldn't have to actually turn it to lock it, like the door handle. You could just hit it accidentally as you opened it, and it would still open, but it'd be locked on the outside. So anyways, the first time that happened, it was like, fool me once, shame on you. But anyways, I was drunk, and my roommate and my cousin were there, and we locked ourselves out, and it was late at night, again, pretty drunk, and I was like, there's gotta be a way to get in here. So I looked around, I saw a fence on the side that I hopped. It was like, story and a half. I don't know, maybe not, like 10-foot fence that I hopped over. Got to the other side, I'm in my neighbor's backyard, and I see they have a deck, and behind our place is a 30-foot tall, flimsy plastic fence that's like just bolted onto this wood frame. And so anyways, I scale up my neighbor's deck and hop over on the other side of that 30-foot tall fence. And I'm hanging on, I'm looking down, and I see that there's like there's a kitchen window. We're on the second story, and there's like this little awning thing, some kind of platform that had like shingles on it right outside the window. And I was like, I know if I can get on that platform, I can bust open that kitchen window and get in and save the day. So I was drunk, fearless, jumped, landed surefoot, broke in that window, went and let in my people, and went to bed. And another time, we put a key in the garage after that because we couldn't access the garage that was separated from the apartment. But we put a key in there so that if it happened again, Second time, maybe we didn't put the key in there yet, or maybe the key wasn't there because somebody forgot to put it back. I forget. But either way, it happened again, and it did it again, drunk. No problem. Third time though, going home, my roommate's out of town. The day before, I had used the key because I locked myself out again. Used the key and I put it on the counter and I didn't put it back in the garage. So as I'm getting home from work, sober, because I was just at work, and I go to let my dog out, and damn it, if I didn't lock the damn door again, lock myself out with my phone inside, so I couldn't call my landlord. I knocked on my neighbor's door, none of them were home. And I was like, well, I've done it twice before, and I can fucking do it again. So I went through the whole drill. Got to the fence on the other side, and now sober, I'm looking down at this platform, and I'm like, fuck, that's far. I mean, it was like a 10-foot drop down. I was like, how the hell have I done this before? I was scared, and I hesitated, and I jumped, and I slipped, and I fell the rest of the way down. Grabbed on to try and grab the little deck we had out back to grab, save myself, but I missed and just went head straight onto the concrete right here. There was like a mound of concrete that supported one of the beams for the deck, and I think I hit my right knee first, but I was already kind of like flat, so I reached out to grab the deck, and so I'm like parallel to the ground, and I kind of landed like knee, arm, head, and it was kind of like a whiplash right down into that mound of concrete. Blackout. Come to, and I'm just in a pool of my own blood, and panicked. Fuck, where am I? What happened? And then I come to it, I'm like, oh my god, I just fell from that 30-foot fucking fence. I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, fuck. Blood all over my hands and my face. I could feel it dripping down my face. But my back door, I could walk up the steps to go to the back kitchen door, and it's still locked though, so I still have to jump onto that platform. At least, it's not that far, but it was still risky, and I had to do that and still break into that window. And I get inside, and I had just recently broken up with my girlfriend, or we broke up. She broke up with me. I don't remember. We broke up a few times. Anyway, she was a nurse, and I called her, and I was like, hey, I just fell like a few stories, hit my head on the concrete. I was like, I just need you to tell me if I need to go to the hospital or not. And she was like, well, FaceTime with me. So I FaceTime with her, and she's like, yeah, hang up the phone and call 911. Like, you got a huge gash on your head. You said you fell like 30 feet. Like, hang up, call an ambulance. I was like, I don't want to pay the ambulance bill. Because when I was younger, I had like a panic attack. I was like 19 or something, and called an ambulance and had this outrageous bill that I couldn't forget. And so I was like, can you just, and I could tell looking at her FaceTime, she's all dressed up. was just getting ready to go out. And I was like, can you just please drop what you're doing and take me to the hospital, please? Your hospital. It was the closest one, UCSF, to my house. And she's like, yeah, of course, I'll be right there. And she thinks about it, I guess, for a minute. She calls me back, and she's like, it'll be faster if you, like, take an Uber, and I can meet you at the hospital. I was like, all right. So I, like, wash out my wound, examine it, just make sure, I don't know, I could see the bone. I could see my skull bone, which is crazy. It was just like a flap of skin drooping down. Anyways, I call an Uber. I have, like, you know, fucking towel on my head for the blood. Uber driver's like, you all right? I'm like, nope. And now, as I'm driving there, it's like a 10-minute ride there. Like, the adrenaline, I guess, starts wearing off. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. My knee starts fucking killing me. My wrist starts killing me. And again, I feel like I'm just gonna, like, fucking faint. And next thing I know, I'm there, and I try to get out of the car, and it's hard because my knee's all fucked up. And so I'm, like, limping in, this shit on my head, to the emergency room. And it's crowded, and I'm like, take my thing off my head. And I was like, can somebody please help me? And so like, oh shit. Like, they see what happened? I tell them, yeah, I fell like 3 stories off of a fence, landed on my head. I'm like, whoa, man, like, you need to go to a trauma center. There's no trauma center here. So we're gonna call you an ambulance. Get you over to the trauma center. I was like, fuck, I should just call the ambulance in the first place. So, anyways, Kat, my ex, gets there not long after that, and, like, grabs my stuff, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna send him to General in an ambulance because there's a trauma center there. So Kat meets me at the trauma center, and they do, you know, a lot of things. They give me fentanyl right away. For the pain, which didn't even really work very well. It didn't help me, at least. And I did x-rays and MRIs and CAT scans and just several hours of waiting and doing all these procedures. And then eventually they stitched up my head. And along the way, they gave me more fentanyl, and then eventually morphine, which worked. And then they checked me out with antibiotics and Oxycontin. And Kat was great because she just stayed by my side the whole time. I mean, I was there from, I don't remember when we got there, but it was all night. I didn't leave until like 10 the next morning, but it was something like 12, 14 hours. Kat just stayed there the whole time, and every time they wanted to give me drugs, Kat being the nurse was like, what are you giving them, how much? Asking all the right questions that I wouldn't have asked. And just made me think of my mom and how she was given narcotics and it killed her. And maybe if she would have had someone like Kat there asking them what they were giving her, Kat would have picked up that chart and saw that she shouldn't have it and stopped them. But that's not what happened. And thank God that Kat was there for me to prevent them accidentally doing that to me too. Needless to say, getting my head fucked up like that really fucked my head up. And it just all seemed to be in the same pattern of everything through my life. And it was real heavy and hard to comprehend and understand. And I always try to understand things. Just none of this is making sense anymore. So my default was to turn to drugs and alcohol again. Hard. Took all those pain pills, got some more from a drug dealer that I knew. But I quickly weaned myself off of those because I had a problem with pain pills before, and I was not going to go down that road again. I don't even really like opiates that much. I was in pain though, so I needed them, but I didn't want to stay on them. I don't like the feeling. But man, the worst headache I've ever had in my life. So, yeah, and then again, all kind of came back around in some kind of deja vu like moment where this coronavirus happened and we're sheltered in place. I'm just like, I feel isolated again. It brought me back to after my mom died in a new place, in isolation. And I was just lonely and scared. And I'm very social. So not having that outlet of hanging out with friends and doing activities that I like, and just being scared that I was going to die from this virus, scared for my family, my grandparents, just scared. On top of that, I'm isolated. On top of that, I'm depressed. So I do more drugs. And that's not working. That wasn't helping. And then, just when I think it couldn't get any worse, I get a call from the San Francisco police officer that I'm going to jail for my allegations against me. And he's like, you still have that lawyer, this lawyer that I paid $5,000 for who did nothing. And I said, yeah. So he's like, all right, I can't talk to you then. I'll call your lawyer. So I talked to my lawyer, and they're like, yeah, they want you to turn yourself in tomorrow. I was like, okay. And tomorrow was the Friday before Memorial Day. And I was like, can we, does it matter? Can I come in on, I got work tomorrow. Can we do Monday? Like, he's like, I'll ask. And so he asked, he goes back, he's like, no, they're not going to let you do that. You got to go tomorrow. And I realized later, the reason why they wanted to do that, because they wanted to keep me there all weekend. Teach me a lesson. For a crime that I hadn't been convicted of yet. Still haven't. And so my lawyer's like, here's bail bondsman. You can post bail. You can go there, turn yourself in at noon. You should be done out of there in like 4 to 6 hours. So I was like, all right. So I did that. And I was in jail for 9 hours. And at like this 5th or 6th hour, when my bail actually posted, because I saw it later, that it posted at that time, they grabbed me from the cell that I was in with a bunch of other people, mostly black people. And this corrections officer grabs me and starts walking me out of there, and I'm like, oh, cool, my bail posted, I'm out. In my head, I'm saying that. And he's like, did you post bail? And I was like, I think so. And he's like, well, there's no bail. I was like, no bail? He's like, yeah, California law, no bail. So he's like, get undressed, gives me an orange jumpsuit. He's like, get naked. I was like, what the fuck? So you're gonna stay here all weekend? I was like, what the fuck? And then somebody else in the distance is like, oh no, Fry's bail is posting. Like, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Put your clothes back on. Come here, sign this. And I'm just so confused. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't understand. He's like, just sign this. I'm like, all right. Fuck. I had no idea what I signed. Never got a copy of it either. Guys walking me back to the cell, and I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. Did I post bail? Am I getting out? Like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, you're confused. You're in jail. I was like, thanks. Appreciate that. Puts me back in that cell for another 4 hours. And, 3 hours later, at the 8th hour, they booked some crazy guy. I just assumed he was crazy because they put him in the cell next to mine, and at the top of his lungs, he screamed the Lord's Prayer and Hail Mary to the T. I grew up Catholic, so I had to memorize those. Hadn't heard them in a long time, but I remembered them, and apparently he did too. And he screamed them at the top of his lungs for 30 minutes. And after a while of that, I'm just sitting there with my hands over my ears, and I'm like, okay, shut the fuck up. Like, I get it. And it really changed my perspective on religion, which I pretty much abandoned after my mom died. But I felt like I couldn't right then and there. And so I came home and I was like, I'm gonna stop doing drugs and drinking for a while. And I stopped doing drugs for a while, and I stopped drinking for like a week. And I'd already stopped smoking weed for a while because I was trying to get a new job. And one night, it was hard for me to sleep. I stopped drinking, so I kind of had some insomnia. And I just picked up a Bible that I had since boot camp, which I started reading in boot camp. I just started in the beginning in Genesis, and that's a terrible book. That night I decided to just flip it open to a random page, and that random page was the book of no, I'm drawing a blank. Book of Proverbs. Yeah. And I read that, and it really resonated with me. A lot of wisdom in there that I feel like I'd already come to learn through my life experience, and something that I hadn't. It was hard to read. I had to Google a lot of stuff, but it was good. Very quotable. And I started trying to reevaluate and reflect on my life and what I needed to do. And one of the things I thought of is I needed to talk to I'd already been talking to my grandparents and family a bit already because of the shelter in place. I just felt like I needed to do it more, and I needed to learn as much as I could from them and my history and their history and what they know. And so my whole perspective changed in that moment. And I try to share it with people. And this book's pretty good. You guys should read it. You're crazy, dude. Crazy. Guys, some of these music lyrics are wild. Have you ever listened to them and thought about what they're saying? It's they're talking about some real shit, some real spiritual, religious shit in here that I didn't realize. Some of my favorite hip-hop songs and country songs and rock songs. And I was like, you're hearing God lyrics? You're crazy. You're insane, dude. Maybe I am. Or maybe you are. I guess we'll figure it out one day.